Okay, in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to resize a partition in our Debian web server. Now, if you remember the first video I created, I installed the Debian operating system in VirtualBox so we could set up a web server so that we could build websites, JavaScript games, and allow the rest of the world to see our work. I went through some steps on how to do that. Now, when I installed the Debian operating system, it it gave a little bit of space to a partition, very large amount of hard drive space to the home partition, which we're hardly going to use since this is not an operating system we're going to use for regular use. We're going to use it as a web server. So what this video is going to do is that we're going to resize the partitions. We're going to shrink down the home partition as little as possible and give all that extra space that we took away from the whole partition to the var partition, so that we have a lot of space to do a lot of web work in our web server. So let's start by going into the web server I created in VirtualBox. Let's go into Debian. I need to go in here to get some information. So let's give it a few minutes while this loads up. Okay. Once I get the login screen, I'll go into the operating system so I could get some information that I'm going to need to resize the partitions. Okay, let me log in. Okay, so now that I'm in, I want to go under applications, under utilities, and under disks. This is going to give me information about the partitions in the hard drive. Now, from what I remember, our var partition was about 7 gigabytes. So this is this partition. So let me click on this, and it says mounted at var. This is the var partition. This one is 7 gigabytes. 7 gigabytes is a good amount of space, but if we're going to load videos, graphics, a lot of code, it could fill up quickly if we build a few web games and a few applications. This partition is the home partition. This has 78 gigabytes. Now this has a lot of extra space, which we're hardly going to use because all of our work is going to be done for web work. So I just got to remember the name of the mount. So this is SDA 8 for the home partition. This is the one we're going to shrink. And this is SDA 5 for the var partition. This is the one we want to make as big as possible. So SDA 5 we want to make big. SDA 8 we want to shrink so that the extra space is given to SDA 5, which is the var partition, which is where it has the folder where all our web work is going to be stored. So let me exit out of here. Now, how I want to do this using an application called GParted Live. I could actually install GParted right into the Debian operating system, but when I try to resize it, to resize the home directory, it says I cannot do it because it's being used, and this is just a lot easier just to use GParted Live. And it's just a few extra steps. So I'm gonna just use GParted Live to repartition my hard drive. So let me go into my web browser. Let's do a search for GParted Live. Let's go into the GParted website. Here it says to install GParted Live on a CD, download this ISO. So let's go download it. The installation that is for my machine is the i686. So let's download this. And in a few seconds, it's going to download it. Now, I already downloaded this earlier, so I'm not going to have to wait for it to download completely. It's downloading this, but I already have downloaded it. So I'm going to go back to VirtualBox. Let's wait till this stops. I'm going to go back to VirtualBox, and I'm going to restart the web server, but using the ISO of GParted Live as a CD drive image. So it's going to think that it's a disk on the CD or DVD drive. Okay, so how do I tell it that the ISO is going to be an image on the CD drive? I click on web, I go to settings. On the settings, I go to storage. On the storage, I click my drive, and then I click on this little circle here so that we could choose an image. So I'm going to choose an image. I find the ISO that I downloaded, which is GParted Live 1.1. And I say, okay, that's it. Now the GParted Live ISO appears like if it's a CD on the CD drive. So I could just start the web server. And the first thing it's going to do, it's going to read the image from the CD drive, and it's going to run GParted Live. So since it's running GParted Live, I'm going to use the default. Let's wait a few more seconds. Okay. Okay, don't touch the key map. The language I want to use is American English, which is 33. And 0, so I could enter into the graphical mode. So let's just wait while the graphical user interface loads. And there, we got GParted running. So, as I remember, SD8 was the home directory, which had 78 plus 70 something gigabytes of hard drive space, which is way too much. We're not going to use that. And SD5 was our var directory, our var section, which only has 7 gigabytes of drive. So what I want to do is I want to reduce the size of SD8 as much as possible. I'm going to have to leave some space because I do use that from time to time, and give all that extra space to SD5. So let's click on SD8. Let's right click and let's say resize and move. I'm going to change this from 74 to 10. 10, 1, 2, 3. And now I have all this space extra. Now before I click on resize, I have to move it to the end because the empty space has to be next to the SD5 partition in order for us to use it. So I moved this to the end, put the empty space here in the front, say resize. So now I have this allocated space here. Now this space here, this white space, is my var my var area, my var partition. I cannot resize it to use all the space because I have these two small partitions here. So I have to move these two small partitions all the way to the end so that this space will be right next to this guy. So let's move these two guys. Resize move. Let's move you to the end. Resize move. Let's move you to the end. Now that I have all this empty space right next to my var partition, SD5, I'm going to resize this to take up all this empty space. Okay. So this is the current size. This is the empty space. That's about 10 times as big. So let's see. Let's add a 0 here. This 3 left. 7 and 3, 70. Let's add 70 to it. Okay, 561, 500, 3.500 is 8. 61, let's just add the rest manually. Okay, so that's all the space. So now I'm going to use all that extra space as a partition for the var partition, which is where we're going to do all our web work. So now that I've changed the partition, let's apply the changes. Okay, so it's moving things around and resizing stuff. Let's just wait. Complete. Okay, so this is finished. So since this is finished, now SD5 is close to 70 gigabytes, which is what we wanted. SD8 is about 8 gigabytes, which is fine, close to 9 gigabytes. So this still has plenty of space to store stuff. This has all the space we need for making games and doing graphics and putting videos and all that good stuff. So now that this is done, let me exit out of here. Okay, since it's done, I'm just going to close it. Okay, power off machine. It's fine. Okay, so we resized this. So let's remove the ISO from the DVD drive. And let's boot up the web server to make sure that it's working fine. Perfect. It seems to be loading up fine so far. So let's just go in the operating system, make sure that everything's fine. I'm pretty sure there are other ways of doing this, but for me, this is a pretty simple and straightforward way of doing things. I plan to build more than 100 games, so I need as much hard drive space as I can for my web partition. So let me log in. Okay, everything working fine so far. The operating's up and running. Let me go into my disk and see, partition 5, which is the bar partition, is 74 gigabytes. Now it has plenty of space, which is good. The other one still has about 10 gigabytes, which is still very good. So I have most of the space here, which I'm going to be using to make several games and uploading some videos and a lot of other stuff. So that's it. So that's how you resize a partition in Linux. To me, the easy way. And now that we've repartitioned our web server, it's going to have a lot of space for a lot of games, since I do use graphics and animation and a lot of stuff on my games.